Actually, what's funny is when I was doing this, I knew kind of what, going to the pastors' meetings, what we were talking about, our vision of it. I was like, you know what, I'm going to do a breakout session. No, I wasn't going to do a breakout section. I was going to put a mic out, like ask questions. And then when you did it, thank you so much. It helped me out. It's like, we'll do this. But it has been a whirlwind of 2 weeks, 3 weeks for me. Emotional roller coaster. Let's see, my dad fell, broke his hip, pelvis, is in the hospital. You're Superman of a dad, laying, making fun of him the whole time, but laying there, and you're just like, dude, get up. And then had to put our dog down. That was rough. Did not think that was going to be as rough as it was. And it wasn't even 6 hours. Madden's like, for Christmas, I'm going to ask for another dog. I said, no, you're not. This is number 2 we've put down. I am not doing this again. But, so here we are. A little bit different. My YouTube shorts will fit in nicely on a midweek service. But since I took something from you, Jenny, I took something from Samantha, Sam as well. So, Corey, can you start that up on there? You remember you posted this? Yep. I saw that, and I'm like, oh, this is so awesome. I'm going to steal that from her. So here we have, this is the umbrella analogy. All right, to explain what some will call a biblical order of the family. It's the idea that the umbrella provides protection and coverage for the people who are underneath it. We have Christ as the highest umbrella, covering and guiding the entire family. The husband, who is under Christ's authority and is called to protect, lead, and provide for the family. We have the wife, who is under the leadership and is called to comfort, teach, and nurture. And then the children, who are under the care of our authority, of the parents, and are called to love and obey us. And the family functions best when everyone is first submitted to God and fulfills God-given responsibilities towards each other. This is what the Bible teaches us, that Christ should be first in our home. Us as parents have the responsibility to disciple and lead our children. Husbands are called to sacrificially love and lead their families, wives playing this vital role of nurturing, teaching, and strengthening the home. And then children, just honor and obey your parents. But at times, it looks like this. The husband is the boss, and everyone just needs to follow what he says. This is a huge misconception, because husbands are commanded to love their wives as Christ has loved the church, as he gave himself up for her. Ephesians 5:25. Because God's leadership is sacrificial, servant-hearted, and loving, not domineering. But also as parents, we are instructed to not provoke our children to anger, but to bring them up in training and the instruction of the Lord. So biblical authority always comes with this biblical responsibility. Kind of what my theme for today is this. Children are going to learn more from what they see than more from what they're told. So if God is truly over us, this is how it should look. Dad is following Christ, mom is following Christ, and children see this example. This umbrella just doesn't represent authority, it represents spiritual influence that flows downward. So when Christ is at the top, his love, his truth, his grace, and all the priorities should be felt throughout the entire family. There is an eternal question we need to ask ourselves, and that is, if someone looked at our home for a month, would they be able to tell that Christ is this large umbrella over our family? So here is the topic that I'm going to speak on today. And yes, I did not pick this topic. All right, you guys jumped on all the other topics. You know who you are. And this is one of the topics that was left, so I was like, I guess I'm doing that one. Did not think that I would be teaching on biblical parenting. but here we are. So when you type it up, biblical parenting, type it up in the internet under Google search, this is what you'll get. This focuses on shaping children's hearts and character through God's word, prayer, love, discipline, and example, and preparing them for a life that honors God rather than worldly success. So we are told time after time that we are supposed to be good stewards to what God has given us. Stewards of our time, of our bodies, stewards of our talents, stewards of our gifts. And as much as they get on your nerves, Psalms 127:3 says, children are a gift from the Lord, and they are a reward from him. It is talked in the Bible that children are a blessing from God. They are not possessions. And we as parents are entrusted with their care, and our job is to mold them after God's word and his heart. All right, so the first question is going to be, what's something you swore you'd never do as a parent and now you do it? And question number 2 is, what has surprised you the most about being a parent compared to what you expected before you had children? So just by a raise of hands, who thinks parenting today is more difficult? You can raise 2 for added emphasis. That's fine. I have Raising Children in Christ from the 1980s versus today. It's just talking about how much difference it is. Like influence was mostly back in the day was by community, and now we have huge social media influence, entertainment, TV, radio, and I'm going to talk a little bit about this phone, streaming, social media. But that just shows you how much more distractions was so much more limited, so much more slower, and now it's just 24/7, nonstop. The whole access to the world, unlimited, instant access, and now we give our kids these phones, and they just have access to everything. They got TikTok, they got Snapchats, they have Reels, and they're constantly swiping. Now, I'm not blasting them or anything like that, because at times I catch myself doing it as well, and I really have to gut punch myself for it. But nowadays, they can't keep up with it. They can't keep up with this world. When I grew up, all I tried to keep up with was Billy down the street because he had a new bike, or he had the new basketball hoop that lowered so we could dunk on it. But now they got to keep up with the world, and we see how things are happening constantly, updating the feeds, and the kids are seeing horrors that I would have never saw. Horrors of war, horrors of life is now at the touch of their fingertips. But with us, it was old wives' tales, or the house down the block was a haunted house, and if you looked at it, you'd be scared. And I don't know if you guys remember killer bees. I was afraid. Still to this day is probably why I run away from bees, because all I grew up with was Billy killer bees, because kids says they saw them. And I did work roofing, and those the vents that are on top of the roof, those are basically beehives, all right? So every time, 2.5, 3 stories up, and we would knock those over when I did construction, and I would run. It never fell off a roof. So I say it never fell off a roof, but I would run. Back then, our parents had one security system, and that was be home when the street lights come on. And that was it. They didn't have Life 360. They didn't have these tracking apps. No cell phones. Let me tell you about this tracking app, right? Okay, so I had Madden who wanted to hang out at a party for a sports banquet after sports banquet. So I'm like, yeah, go ahead. That's fine. Next thing I know, she's like, what time should I be home? She's literally 1.5 miles, 2 miles from the house. I thought she's at a house, or that's where she was staying. So I said 11 o'clock. I don't know why I threw out 11. It's way too late now after I said that. And I'm like, yeah, just 11 o'clock. I wake up, it's 10:55. And I'm like, look, Life 360 or whatever we use, find my phone. She's not at that house. She's on some sidewalk walking, and boy, did I let her have it. But then when I talked to her, she started crying about the dog, and I couldn't yell at her. But somehow our parents just trusted that we were probably still alive and doing well wherever we were. Now, if our kids don't answer that phone or answer a text in 3 minutes, I'm planning a rescue mission. So, yes, it is a big yes for me. It is so much harder to raise children now, and that's with my kids being 15, 16 years old from 15 years ago, how much more it is. But what I'm trying to emphasize here is that regardless of what has changed in this world, how we are to raise our children, what we need to really stress on them does not change. We want our kids to, one, know God, and we want our kids to, say one again, because it's all the same. We want them to love God. That's what we want. And so the question becomes, how do we do this as parents? And the answer isn't something new here, because we were given instructions by God a long, long time ago. We've all heard of the Shema. Deuteronomy 6 is a foundational passage in the Torah that calls for wholehearted devotion to God and the intentional passing of the faith to the next generation. And it begins with the declaration known as Shema Yisrael. And it's affirming that God is one and commands people to love him with all their heart, soul, and their strength. Deuteronomy 6, 1-9. These are the commands, decrees, and laws the Lord your God directed me to teach you to observe in the land that you are crossing the Jordan to possess, so that you, your children, and their children after them may fear the Lord your God as long as you live, by keeping all his decrees and commands that I give you, and so that you may enjoy long life. Hear, Israel, and be careful to obey, so that it may go well with you, and that you may increase greatly in the land flowing with milk and honey, just as the Lord, the God of your ancestors, promised you. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as a symbol on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. So from these verses, we are literally taught here how to parent, and how to parent with the purpose. And first, it's got to live in our hearts. Then we communicate this to our children. They were told to not only teach this to their children, but to do it diligently. We have pastors, we have Sunday school teachers, we have youth leaders who have very important roles in our children's lives, but they never replace the responsibility of us as parents to teach it to them and pass it on. This is how we get these Christ-centered families, especially when your kids are young, because they are so impressionable, and we have more of a greater influence on them than you can ever imagine. Can't let the devices be the babysitter to our children. I think of the movie Cable Guy, Jim Carrey. He says that his mom would go out and call the TV Mr. Babysitter to him. And then at the end of the movie, the climactic ending, when he realizes that he needs to destroy the satellite. And he says, somebody has to kill the babysitter to give the kids a chance. Funny how that movie came out in 96. But we need to have godly conversations with our kids. Psalm 78:4. We will not hide them from their descendants. We will tell the next generations the praiseworthy deeds of the Lord, his power, and the wonders he has done. We can't be ashamed of where God brought us from. We've all made mistakes, and we need to talk about them. We need to let them know that we have fallen and that we've done idiotic things as well. Because I don't want my kids to be ashamed if they mess up, because we're all there and we've all messed up. Let's just talk about life. Everyone knows me and my wife work in the emergency medicine field, and we've seen ugliness in the world, and we also have seen the amazing things of this world as well. Now, we talk to our kids about this, what we see and what we go through at work, and we always, and I mean always, flip it and we reflect on the glory of God and His Word. We don't want to be Christian parents. We don't want to be cultural. We don't want to be casual. We want Christ-centered homes. Some of my kids' friends say that their families, and they say it with pride, we're Creasters. Does everyone know what that means? Creaster means that you go to church on Christmas and Easter. That's it. These kids say that. I remember a story from a friend that had teenage kids, and he would admit it to himself and to me that he was a casual Christian, living for God only on Sundays, even though all the while he grew up with me. And one day it really hit him when he told his kids on Sunday morning and woke them up and said, hey, we're going to church. And they gave this big sigh, like, do we have to? Oh, come on. And it hit him at that moment that he hadn't shown them that church and having a relationship with God was of the utmost importance. So when we are Christ-centered, we put God as not an add-on to our life. He isn't an optional feature. And as Pastor Dave always says, He's the main attraction. Be the number one priority in our home. And if we put anything other than God at that top position, it just is idolatry. God has established that He must be first in our lives, in our homes. 1 Corinthians 11:3. But I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Christ is God. Going back 2 verses to 11:1. Follow my example as I follow the example of Christ. This is us. This is what we need to do, because these kids, they watch you. They look at everything you do, and they mimic you. So if they mimic you and they watch your every move, you can drive your kids away by just being a hypocrite, by being a Pharisee. They can't hear you talking trash about people and then showing up at church, and believe me, they're not dumb. They know what you're doing. But they see you in a different light at church. Mark 7:6, he replied, Isaiah was right when he prophesied about you hypocrites, as it is written, these people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. So practical ways to be where we intentionally bring God into our everyday conversations. We need to be intentional with our children. All right, so the question we ask is, how do we live this out? And intentional parenting means that we just don't stop parenting on accident. At times we get so busy with life that we start parenting in reaction mode instead of with a purpose. And I know at times I've acted bad in a way where I actually have to apologize, where I'm the one blowing up and then disciplining them for overreacting as I just overreacted. So we need to be the example as well on that. How we react to their attitudes. When they stomp up those stairs, right? How am I reacting? How do we react to their grades, their behaviors? How do you react to their problems? Because you want your kids to be able to come to you and be able to talk to you about, maybe the tough conversations. Proverbs 22:6 says, start children off on the way they should go, and even when they are old, they will not turn from it. And that word train or start literally implies intentionality, because nobody accidentally disciples a child towards Christ. It takes prayer. It takes us being consistent. It takes our correction. It takes us showing grace. And I'm really focusing on this, so if you feel that theme, the theme is example. They really focus on that example. This verse gives us a picture of what intentional parenting looks like. And there's 3 areas that we need to focus on. One is modeling. Abraham Lincoln said, there is but one way to train up a child in the way that they should go, and that is to travel it yourself. What you do has more impact on your child than all the lectures you could ever give them. They learn more from your example, more over your instruction. Number 2, management. This is the ability to recognize our child's demeanor and character, their gifts, And we need to lead them in that way because every kid is different. Some kid needs a little bit more encouragement. Some kids need structure. Some are introverts, some are extroverts. 3, memories. We need to create memories for them. These are more valuable than possessions. I know we want to buy them everything in the world. And the proverb states that when they are old, they will not depart. And this shows that through lessons, through conversations, and through your prayers that you have prayed over them, that there are moments that are going to stay with these children long after their childhood. Because we all remember amazing moments of our childhood. And it's a law of exposure. And this law of exposure states that who and what you expose your children to will shape who they become and what they believe. Last night, so I work with this guy. He's been on the department for 20-something years. And so I'm an officer, a lieutenant at the fire department, so I have a driver. And he's been my driver for the last 3 years. And you work with these guys every third day, so they become your family. And so last night was the last time that I worked with him. He retired. So like I said, the last 2-3 weeks have been a whirlwind of emotion for me. And I told him, I can't handle this anymore, all right? I'm done. But he started talking to me about my kids, because my kids come to the fire station a lot. They talk to him. They crack on him. And, he's come to Madden's soccer games and stuff like that. And he just was paying compliments to me about how well your kids are, how well behaved, well mannered, and how much they love God. And you did such a good job. And I'm like, whoa, I did not do it. It was all God. Like me putting God at the forefront of my family and I was able to teach these kids the way that I feel biblically sound they need to be raised. And it was just a good time, speak life to him, because I speak life to him a lot. But just to be able to tell him, like, don't look at me like I have the magic formula, because I don't. And I'm learning each and every day. But we can't force our children to love God, but we can expose them to the people and experiences that increase the likelihood of spiritual growth. When I was 15, I joined a youth choir at Parkway. It was called Youth on a Mission. That's really when I started to hang out with Pastor Dave and Lanier. We would all go to church in the morning, and then we'd stay at church until choir practice, then night service, and then we'd go out to eat after church. So from the ages of 14, 15 to 17 years old, that's what I was exposed to every Sunday. It was church, 10 to 12, hang out. From 12 to 4, we had that hangout time. And Pastor Don was not over the facilities at that time, so we would sneak into the gym, and we would put a rock at the door, just a little pebble so it wouldn't lock, so we can sneak in and play basketball. Then we'd go to choir practice, which really wasn't a choir practice. It just ended up turning into a prayer meeting from 4 to 5:30, then night service from 6 to 9. And this is where the foundation was laid for me. Experiences were had. And even when I did go away from God, that tug was still there, because I didn't have a secondhand faith. I had a personal experience. I was exposed to knowing God personally, and not only just on Sunday, but throughout the week. I had my parents who, just by their everyday life, were leading me and showing me by example. My dad's huge Bible study teacher. That's all he's done. That's all I know my dad to do is teach Bible studies. My mom opened up the kitchen to feed all these people that my dad brought over. So I was shown and exposed, and that's what we need to do with our kids. John 17:3 says, "Now this is eternal life, that they know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ whom you have sent." Intentional with our time, intentional with our words, intentional with what we allow into our homes, and intentional what we expose, because what we consistently prioritize teaches our children what matters the most. And at times, we sometimes get this check engine light on us, and sometimes we need to do a full service. Matthew 6:21 says, "For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." If everything in our home revolves around sports, then they're going to believe sports is ultimate. If everything revolves around success, achievement becomes the thing. If everything revolves around our image, then appearances become ultimate. But when Christ is centered, they begin to truly understand what really matters. And they begin to understand when things come about and when we have these things that come against us, who do we turn our attention to? They see that. Joshua 24:15 says, "But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord." This was an intentional declaration over a home, and this means that we are creating moments to talk to God naturally throughout our lives. You see, Deuteronomy 6 didn't say to only teach your children at church once a week. It says talk to them when you sit at home, and when you walk along the road, and when you lie down, and when you get up. In other words, make God every part of your life. Corey was talking about intentionality when I just walked back there, and he says he uses the car rides. That's when because they can't escape. But yes, in the car ride. And that is actually one of the things that I told my friend. I said, you don't understand how much I speak to my kids in the car, and they're so impressionable at that time. And now that Rylan drives, I don't get that drive time as much. Now I just get, dude, you go to the store. I'm not going to the store. You take Madden to practice. I'm not. But not every now and then, every baseball game, he wants me to drive him to the game. And he has to be there an hour and a half early. So then I just sit there. But I will never take that and say no, because those are the times that I get to speak to him, to speak life to him. So in the car, yes, after a hard day, after disappointments, after successes, after mistakes, and some of the biggest spiritual conversations don't happen during a planned Bible study. They happen in ordinary moments when our kids are just trying to make sense of life. I've had great conversations with them just on a ride to the grocery store. Like I told you, after these games, we have great talks. And they have questions. They have lots of questions, some that I don't even know how to answer. But we ask them to read their Bible and get your own understanding of it. So when they come with questions, I need to be able to say, let's look at this together. Colossians 3:21 says, "Fathers, do not embitter your children, or they will become discouraged." In Ephesians 6:4, like I said, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the training and instruction of God. Our home should be places where there is truth, where there is grace, where there is forgiveness, encouragement, and love. That doesn't mean our homes are perfect. There will still be those arguments. Who here has siblings? Remember how we used to fight with them? I'm telling you, my sister could win an Academy Award. That girl will cry on demand, and my mom would think that I really did try to kill her when I never touched her. The bad attitudes, the stress, the exhaustion, but what direction is our home moving towards? Because children are going to be constantly absorbing what that home life feels like. And just remember the tone that I said, priorities. What did mom and dad truly value? Is church and doing things for Christ at the forefront of it? It's questions we need to ask ourselves. Is there love? Is there consistency? And we need to come to the realization and understanding that discipleship is not taught. It's modeled. And remember in 1 Corinthians 11:1, Paul says, "Follow my example as I follow Christ." And our children will learn far more from watching our lives than simply listening to our words. And at the end of the day, our greatest goal as parents is not simply just to have successful kids. Yes, that's great to have a successful child. We all want that. But we want children who know God, who love God, and follow God for themselves. If you could take anything away with you from my rambling, is that our job is to intentionally point our children towards Christ through our words, through our examples, and through our priorities and the atmosphere that we build in our home. Our kids are going to forget things that we have said, but they will never forget the things we consistently showed them that mattered. Because, guys, sports are going to fade. Accomplishments are going to fade. Money is going to fade. But a relationship with Christ is eternal, and that's what we want them to know. So I know if you looked at the thing, it was biblical parenting and leading work. But I feel like every Sunday, not every Sunday, but we've really been touching about how to lead our community, how to reach out to the community. We're doing this spiritual drive-through with hot dogs and praying for people. I really wanted just to focus on the biblical parenting side of this, because I do believe it's very important how we raise our kids and just talk to them on a day-to-day basis.